Before I tell you the strange story behind the making of this video, let's watch the first few seconds of it. Spicy. This is a tale of beautiful women, stubborn men, music business DIY grit, guerrilla filmmaking, physical hardship, and incredible kindness and generosity. This is the story of making Lie to Me, my first music video. Why so serious? On January 2nd, 2012, my second full-length album was released. And like my first album, it was completely self-financed and self-produced. But unlike my first album, I had brought in a world-class mastering engineer, I hired a nationally recognized artist to do the cover art, and I brought in a PR firm to promote it. Remarkably, at this point in time, the music industry as a whole was still struggling to find its footing in this new digital landscape. You had so-called gurus of the new music business popping up everywhere, claiming to have all the answers, but often contradicting each other. Give all your music away for free! Make your money from selling concert tickets and t-shirts. Artists should be paid for all their work. Buy my new course and learn to earn. The album is dead. Release 10 singles every year, give them away for free, post to Facebook and Instagram every single day. The album is still a viable art form as long as you market it correctly. Buy my new course to learn how. And on it went. In spite of the large number of people out there claiming to have all the answers, there really were no proven methods for a successful album release, at least for indie artists. All you could do is pick a strategy and give it a try. The strategy that my team chose said to release a downloadable single either simultaneously with the album release or a few weeks ahead to stimulate interest in the album. And then you were to follow that up in a month or 6 weeks with a music video, which you would follow up in another month or so with a lyric video for either that track or another track, and you just sort of rinse and repeat. So if a band was on a major label, all this stuff would be done well in advance and ready to present to the public long before the release of the album. In the can, as we would say in the music business. As you're probably able to guess, since this was completely a DIY guerrilla music business affair, that was not the case with the Lie to Me video. I knew Lie to Me was going to be the single, and I started trying to figure out how to make this video happen while my album was still in the mixing phase, and it was very slow going. Keep in mind that the average cost of making a music video in those days was between $200,000 and $500,000, $500,000.
This is what you've been working for. This is probably enough money to make a nice music video.
A shoestring budget was considered to be $2,000 to $5,000, and that was still out of my range. I started looking at ways to do this entirely on my own. I looked at getting a film student to help me. I looked at renting a camera and buying better editing software, but nothing stood out as the obvious answer. iPhones were still fairly new and didn't have very good cameras on them yet. My video camera definitely wasn't adequate, but worst of all, I had a severely restricted budget. Enter Gary Hill, a friend and a member of my PR team. Gary introduced me to an upcoming director by the name of Travis Legg. Travis was looking to expand his portfolio, so he and I met and discussed the project, and Travis shot me a price that I just couldn't say no to, and next thing you know, the fuse is lit. By the time Travis and I met, the album was already out. It was mid to late January probably before we even got to the pre-production meetings. By the time we got the video scripted and cast and scheduled and shot and edited, there was no possible way that we were gonna have the video out 6 weeks after the album was released. But, you know, that's the nature of the do-it-yourself music business. I gave Travis a copy of the album, printout of the lyrics, hoping to fuel his creativity, and handed the reins over to him. Part of the way we were able to keep the costs down was by keeping production time to a minimum. Script tweaks and rewrites equals more time, and while he was willing to do it, it was going to add more cost to the project. The lyrics of Lie to Me are from the perspective of a guy that's very much in love with a woman who's no longer in love with him. You could infer many scenarios from the lyrics, but the main takeaway is that he's so desperate to maintain the illusion that she loves him that he's begging her to say so, even if they both know she's lying. The last line of the chorus really says it plainly. In the end, the script that Travis wrote featured a couple breaking up with the guy begging the girl to stay and lie to him about her feelings. I was okay with that, so we set dates for filming. He hired the beautiful Deanne Baker for the female role and Tim Stoltz as the heartbroken guy. We only had them for a single day, so we had to get all their scenes shot in one day. We also scheduled my scenes for the following day because we only had the camera for about 2 days, 2.5 days maybe. And I don't remember the exact dates. It was either very late March or very early April. We didn't know what we were in for. Some of the ways Travis kept the cost down for the production were by borrowing a camera instead of renting one. Instead of renting someplace to use as a set, he talked a really nice young woman who was friends with him and Deanne into letting us use her place for the interior shots. He only had a production assistant for half of one day. That meant I got to be the production assistant whenever I wasn't in the shot. And all that really meant was I was helping him reset things in between takes and holding reflective panels to try and even out the lighting. And we didn't even have a real reflective panel. We took this thing, this is out of my car. You put the dark side out in the wintertime to try to absorb heat. You put the silver side out in the summertime to reflect heat. And I had these in my car. He said, I wish we had a reflective panel. I ran out to the car and grabbed one of these and we tried to use that. It didn't work very well, but hey, that's guerrilla filmmaking, right? Because this is a music video, Travis didn't write any dialogue. He just let Tim and Deanne improvise as was appropriate at any given time. The only scripted bit was at the very end where Tim is saying, lie to me, just lie to me, as Deanne's leaving him. Travis would just give him some direction, describe what the scene was supposed to be. We'd shoot a couple different camera angles, and then we'd move on to the next scene. At one point, Deanne throws her bra at Tim as she's getting ready to get in the shower, and Tim mistakenly thinks she wants to get frisky, until she makes it very clear that that's not her intent. Once we got all the bedroom and bathroom shots done, we started to get ready for the exterior shots. And Deanne had brought a variety of outfits along, and so she'd run into the bedroom and change, and Travis would either accept or reject what she was wearing. And that's where we ran into a snag. All the rest of the scenes were supposed to be shot outside because we were thinking we'd have a nice spring day. It was 9 degrees. We had a very late in the season, super cold snap hit us, and there was no sign of it letting up anytime soon. Deanne had worn a big, comfy parka to come into town. And Travis wanted something sexy. Parka didn't exactly fit his vision. So Deanne and Tim's friends said, hey, just look through my closet, see if you can find anything that'll work. And they did, and they found that light little leather jacket that you see Deanne wearing for the rest of the video. As I mentioned, the rest of the video was supposed to be shot outside. I think maybe Tim and Deanne were supposed to have an argument on the porch or something, but I really don't remember. It's been over a decade since we shot this. Anyway, we stepped outside. That 9-degree temperature was just brutal, so Travis improvised. He asked if we could shoot the next scene inside my vehicle. I had the largest vehicle there. So we shot the next couple of scenes inside my SUV. So the thought was that we were going to try and keep poor Deanne warm by shooting inside the car. She and Travis did a couple of shots, and then we were supposed to do one where Tim comes running out, still kind of getting dressed, and joins her in the car. But every time we go to shoot that scene, some car would come roaring down the street. We were trying to shoot from across the street. And we ultimately ended up with me on the phone out of camera range. And I'm watching for traffic, and when it was all clear, I'm shouting into the phone, go now, go now. and Tim comes running out, and you can tell in the scene he's still a little bit nervous about the traffic by the way he's looking left and right, or maybe that's just a habit that he developed as a kid. After we got that shot, I went back inside for a while so Tim and Deanne and Travis could shoot the interior car scenes. There was really only enough room for the three of them in the camera rig. Once all that was done, we had some scenes outside the car. We didn't have a production assistant yet, so I got to be production assistant again. Deanne pushes Tim down in the snow, and we did several takes of that, several different camera angles. But the snow was sticking to the back of Tim's jacket, so I had to find some way to clean that off, and I just took the snow brush out of my car. I'd brush off the back of his jacket, and then I'd be down on the ground trying to make it look like fresh snow for the next shot. Once we got all those scenes done, we went and grabbed some lunch at a Chinese place, my treat, of course, and then we headed downtown for the rest of the shots. And it was just brutally cold. Our production assistant was with us by this time, and all five of us would pile into my car to try to get warm in between shots. We could basically only do one shot, one camera angle, maybe one take of one camera angle, and then we had to pile into the car to try to warm up. Deanne had her parka with her, and I would have that stuffed underneath the blower of the heater so that it would be really warm, so we could put that on top of her when she got back into the car. Not only was that little leather jacket light, she had it unzipped the whole time she was shooting the outside scenes. I cannot tell you how much admiration I have for her. She is absolutely awesome. As we moved around to our different locations, trying to warm up in between shots, we started to lose daylight, which meant it got even colder. I felt so bad for poor Deanne. And, at least Tim had a heavier jacket, but he was freezing too. And I got to tell you, I've got mad respect for the two of them. They really, really put up with a lot to get this video made. Ultimately, we got all the shots that Travis wanted. By then, it was dinner time, really, and so I took everybody out for really good pizza and cold beer at one of our favorite local Italian restaurants. We sat there for 2 hours, and I don't think any of us got warm until about the 2-hour point, but we had a great time. We talked, we laughed, we ate, we drank. It was a really good night. So the next day, Travis and I shot all of the scenes that featured me. We did a bunch of them in my garage where we took a black sheet and we hung that up somehow, and single light, we put wax paper over it to be the diffuser, or what they would call a soft box in the video and film industry. There was stuff showing on either side of the black sheet, so I don't know, Travis did some editing magic to make that not visible. We did a couple shots at my piano where I was replicating the piano parts in the guitar solo and bridge section of the song. And then we went out to shoot my exterior scenes. You'll notice in the video that a lot of my outside scenes are shot, in fact, all of my outside scenes are shot in a cemetery. Travis liked the idea of a cemetery as a metaphor for the death of the relationship. I wasn't too wild about it because, honestly, cemeteries are an overused trope in metal and hard rock music, but since I'd handed complete control over to him, I just went with it. So part of the video was shot here. Probably recognize that from one of the scenes. For some of the shots, Travis was up on that hill shooting over the stonework down toward me. My car just out of camera range, probably about where it's sitting today. Music blasting out of it for me to sing and play along to. It's a little nicer outside today than it was that day. In fact, once again, the temperature was in single digits and it was windy. It was crazy. And it started snowing while we were there. We were okay with that because we decided that was probably going to enhance a couple of those shots. We basically repeated the routine from the day before where we would shoot outside until one of us was about to die from the cold, and then we'd pile back into the car to warm up. When we were shooting the scenes of me finger syncing along to my guitar solo, my hands were so cold I could almost not move my fingers. It was brutal outside once again. We were on a pretty tight schedule that day as I was booked to be a celebrity judge at a Battle of the Bands happening near Chicago in a place called Shark City. This caused me to push myself pretty hard in terms of how long I stayed out in the cold, and that had some ugly consequences. The guitar strap was pulling on my jacket funny, which in turn was pulling on my shirt funny. And how can I put this? The end result was that due to the extreme cold, I injured my left nipple. Due to the cold, I couldn't feel the abrasion that was occurring. And when I got home to change clothes for the band battle thing and begin to thaw out, I felt excruciating pain in my left hoo-hoo. I ended up having to wear like some weird bandage over it that my wife cooked up so that I could even put a shirt on. I gotta tell you, breastfeeding mothers, you have my utmost respect, seriously. I had to wear that weird bandage for a week in order to even be able to put a shirt on. Luckily, all my scenes were done at that point, so it was of minor consequence. So the next step was for Travis to do the editing. He had to edit in between other projects that had harder deadlines and frankly were probably better paying than my project. I got the final edit in the last half of April, I think, probably the 3rd or 4th week of April. And we went live with it on the Old Record Label's YouTube channel on May 2nd, 2012. We actually did a premiere showing of it at the Battle of the Band Finals a few nights before it went live on YouTube. That was kind of fun. As I mentioned earlier, the amount of time Travis was going to spend editing was a really important aspect of the budget. So when I found a couple of mistakes, I really didn't say anything. It's nothing major. It's just little things like where the notes that I'm playing in the video don't match the notes that are being played in the audio. And I figured nobody's going to know the difference except maybe another guitar player. And if I didn't point it out to anybody, nobody else would know. Only now I'm pointing it out to you guys, so now you guys know, but you're not going to tell anybody, right? I've gone and spilled the beans. I just wanted you guys to know that I know, in case somebody spotted that and said, hey, wait a minute, what he's doing on screen doesn't match what I'm hearing. And it's okay. It's okay. Let's just let it go. So more than a decade later, how do I feel about all of this? Well, given my extremely limited budget and the time factors, everything else involved, I think I got pretty good bang for the buck. Would I do anything differently? Well, no, I guess. If I was stuck with the same budget and the same timeline, I would do the exact same thing again. Of course, I wish I had a bigger budget at the time. And if I were to do it now, there's a lot of things that have changed. Maybe I'd get a better video. I don't know. If I could quadruple the budget, that would have been great because then we would have been able to get a couple of days of shooting with Tim and Deanne. We might have got some of the scenes that Travis and I had talked about in our pre-production meetings that we weren't able to do just because of time and budget constraints. It's hard to second guess myself a decade later. All in all, I'm still really happy with the video, especially that climactic scene where Tim falls to his knees and says, lie to me, just lie to me. I think everything turned out really great. Thanks to Tim and Deanne and Travis and their friend that lent us the apartment, this video became a reality, and I'll always be grateful to the bunch of them for that. Their kindness and their generosity will stay with me forever. So what about you guys? Have any of you musicians out there made a low budget or no budget video? I'd love to hear about it. Post something in the comments down below, because I'm sure other DIY musicians would love to hear about it, and I know I certainly would. So anyway, if you've got a story, leave a comment down below, and I'll try to respond to every single one of them. That's enough for today. Until next time, live well, rock hard.